Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about something that's probably going to frustrate a lot of you out there. I know whenever I listen to this guy talk, it really just pisses me off. So there's going to be a lot of things that we talk about in this video, and yeah, so let's just dive in. I don't even want to waste any time. So I did tweet over on Twitter. I quoted this Bloomberg crypto post because this is talking about that individual that was doing insider trading on Coinbase, basically talking about confidential information about coins that Coinbase was going to list before it got even listed. And yeah, basically this individual got 2 years for insider trading. And I quoted it and I said, okay, now what about all the government officials who were doing insider trading on a ton of stocks? I mean, this has been a subject that we've been following for so long. And in fact, even going back into the beginning of this month with FRC completely collapsing, we do see breaking news. Another congressman literally traded banking stocks again. Lois Frankel sold FRC on March 16th, avoiding the remaining 80% drop. She then sold or bought JPM, the bank buying FRC, on March 22nd. Numerous politicians bought and sold banking stocks with unusual timing. And yeah, you could check out all of them over here. They're documented on Unusual Whales. It's just comical to me. Like, it really is comical to me that we don't have regulators stopping any of these politicians, because again, like, these are politicians. So when you look at these individuals, like, oh, well, you know, none of them are going to get caught. They're people in, you know, power. But if it's crypto, oh, it's instantly they're getting prosecuted. This is comical to me. And also, this is the guy in question, Mr. Brad Sherman. Man, this guy's a clown. We do see Warren Davidson quoting this. We do see reminds me of another movie. Mr. Madison, what have you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. And yeah, that's exactly what Brad Sherman is. Like, when you listen to this guy talk, you become idiotic. Like, we do see there's this fear of missing out. This is Brad Sherman. Peru is way ahead of us in cocaine production. China is way ahead of us in organ harvesting. We don't need to keep up on things or those things, and we don't need to keep up on crypto. Listen to this idiot talk.
There's this fear of missing out, that we've got to keep up with other countries. You know, Peru is way ahead of us in cocaine production. China's way ahead of us in organ harvesting. We don't need to keep up on those things, and we don't need to keep up on crypto. As for protecting U.S. investors, investors know, and they certainly know now, that when you send your money to the Bahamas or Cayman Islands, you do not have protection. You could lose it all. And the idea that we should tell investors that something's licensed in the United States when it's not only as dangerous for the investors as crypto is, but as harmful to our country as crypto tries to be, I don't see a reason to do that.
Okay, but there still is, within the subcommittee that you sit on, an effort to set some kind of guardrails, regulatory boundaries here. I know that there will be a hearing tomorrow with the digital asset subcommittees of both the Financial Services Committee as well as the Agriculture Committee in the House. Really, what that comes down to is SEC versus CFTC jurisdiction. I know where you come down on that. You'd like to see more control with the SEC, but I thought we were all agreed that Bitcoin isn't a security.
No one is convinced of that. I think the vast majority.
Gary Gensler has said that.
Gary has said that the vast majority of tokens are securities, and if the industry wants, if they want to know what the rules are, fine. All they have to do is come to Congress and say, "Please make us a security," and we will do that. Instead, Sam Bankman-Fried was here doing a host of illegal things for one purpose, and that was to keep the SEC out of crypto. We should not trash Sam Bankman-Fried on the one hand and then pass his bill on the other hand.
You say that they should come to Congress to set the rules here, but that has proven quite difficult to do, Congressman. Are you optimistic that we will actually see legislation make its way through your committee and then through its counterpart in the Senate as well? What would that be? We hear often it's stablecoins that are the lowest hanging fruit.
I'm optimistic that if this industry wants real regulation, they can get it. But they don't. And they will do everything possible, including everything Sam Bankman-Fried was doing, to stop us from having real regulation of crypto and to prevent the Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering statutes from being effectively applied to the entire ecosystem. So they're here not because they want clarity, but because they want only a patina of regulation. And they're here to fight the clarity that we would have if we simply passed a law saying all crypto is a security. We could have that kind of clarity immediately, but the industry has a lot of money and power. And there's no money and power on the other side. There's no PAC or lobbyist fighting for Know Your Customer, fighting against drug dealers, or there's no lobbyist in town devoted to making sure that we have effective tax law enforcement. All the money and power is in the hands of people who have literally created money out of thin air, over $1 trillion worth, and they're using that to try to prevent us from having effective regulation.
So yeah, it's all us, right? We're the ones that don't want regulations at all for this space. So now, considering the fact that this guy wanted to go full-blown idiotic, insanity on crypto, let's look into this guy. So if we go over to his website, sherman.house.gov, here we have him. This is a guy that posted back on March 22nd of this year, restoring confidence in the American banking system. Very interesting. So I don't think that this really worked, because from here on out, we've seen more and more banks completely collapse. And I think that's interesting to note that this guy loves the banks. This guy literally loves the banks. In fact, he loves the banks so much that he actually got paid off by a lot of them. They were his biggest donors during his campaign. Now, also over here, we do see our accounting system for banks is absolutely perverse. Listen closely to this real quick. I know it's 5 minutes and 9 seconds long. Don't worry, I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Due to Dodd-Frank, our banking system is strong. Our regulators avoided a crisis by quick action this month. But the solution was not free. Some $22 billion of special assessments will be imposed on banks. That will lead to lower rates on certificates of deposit, perhaps 0.25%, perhaps 0.1%. And our entire economy has been hurt. It's been rattled by what happened this month. Our bank regulatory system has some real flaws. It's an undemocratic system in which FASB writes the accounting rules and doesn't even claim to be part of a democratic government. The Federal Reserve Board's regional banks, it's not one person, one vote, it's one bank, one vote. The bankers vote on who's on the regional board, and the bankers of my state elected the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank. Banks get to pick their regulators, state or federal, holding company or no holding company, Fed or OTC. They can use regulatory arbitrage, and every regulatory agency knows that if it gets a reputation of being too tough, the banks can flee and go to one of their regulatory competitors. Our accounting system for banks is absolutely perverse. If you make a Main Street loan, you're penalized under the CECL system, and you will always list that loan on your balance sheet as being worth less than you paid for the note. If you instead go to Wall Street and buy long-term bonds, you are rewarded. If the bond goes up in value, you can sell it or classify it as available for sale and recognize a profit and justify a bonus. If the bond goes down in value, you can hide it by listing it as held for maturity and list it at the original purchase price on your balance sheet, even though you know it's worth 20 or 30% less. The crypto billionaires fanned the flames because they understood that if they can besmirch our banking and dollar system, crypto goes up, and they've made tens of billions of dollars. Silicon Valley Bank could have saved itself in 2022 by hedging its risk or selling its long-term bonds, but they knew that would cut profits and bonuses. They decided to take the risk, and here we are. And of course, our clawback provisions are inadequate.
So, of course, he blamed it on crypto for Silicon Valley going back to March 29th. But also, he said that the banking system was, sound. It was strong. Everything was great. That's pretty comical considering the fact that this is March 29th and we already know what happened in April. This guy's a joke. And also, by the way, crypto from roughly around like the end of 2022, or even, like the middle to the end of 2022, crypto drastically increased in value, while the dollar seems to be having a rough patch. Don't know where this guy's getting his facts from. Also over here, by the way, going back to April 18th, we've seen Crypto Law post about Gary Gensler and a lot of things happening around Gary Gensler, and especially the hearing itself. We did see Brad Sherman make a big statement. We do see now Brad Sherman is back. He tries to crack a joke about his views being my own, as if Gensler's behavior is just fine. Sherman adds that he wants the SEC to say all crypto are securities. That's right. That's what this guy wants. So yeah, I do actually have the video over here itself, but first I do want to share with you guys, going all the way back to 2022, that yes, Brad Sherman did lie publicly. We do see Fox Business has it somewhat wrong. I often speak to SEC Chair Gary Gensler, sometimes about crypto, but never regarding XRP. Only conversation I've had with the SEC official regarding XRP is testimony of Director Gerber Gruol. And if we do see down here, scoop via Eleanor Tourette, House FSC Dems member Brad Sherman tells Fox Business he believes the SEC Gov will easily win its case against Ripple over the legality of its unregistered sales of XRP, and has been in contact with Gary Gensler to expand the case. Also, we already know that this guy's fully behind the idea of the SEC going after crypto. He wants them to go after crypto, and he applauded them for going after crypto. We do see over here from Brad Sherman, investor protection is not the antithesis of capital formation. It is the necessary antecedent. Watch my questioning of the SEC Gov Chair Gary Gensler. Listen closely to how disgusting this video actually is. I might actually just play the whole thing. I know it's a little bit longer. It's 6 minutes and 20 seconds long, but listen closely to this video.
The chair now recognizes the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Capital Markets, Mr. Sherman, for 1 minute.
Chairman Gensler, thank you for working hard and getting things done and fulfilling the mandate given to you by the 33 and 34 Securities Acts and bringing them up to date for the 21st century.
I just got to say, what work did Gary Gensler do at all? What land is this guy living in?
Thank you for getting information that investors who care about the environment will want. Thank you for standing up to the crypto bro billionaires where an area where the multi-billion-dollar frauds are just the beginning of the societal harm. Investor protection is not the antithesis to capital formation. It is the necessary antecedent. If we don't protect investors, capital will go to other markets. The private placements cannot swallow the whole idea of companies being public. And the idea that 2,000 shareholders should become 2,000 shareholders of record through a phony math that allows companies to have perhaps 10,000 beneficial shareholders and not consider themselves public is something that needs to change. I yield back.
Recognize for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Chair Gensler, I am very pleased with your attitude and your performance, but my views are my own. I'd like to speak for the gentleman from Texas, but he hasn't authorized me to do so.
And there was that stupid joke that he made about Gary Gensler and how he was saying that his views were his own as well.
I won't. The chair of the committee says that we ought to have absolute clarity in this issue, and I agree with him. And we can achieve that if the chair will work with me on legislation to say that all intangible investment assets, including all crypto, are securities. That way it would be very clear that investors in crypto get the same protection as investors in stock, bonds, and other intangible assets acquired for an investment purpose. The definition of accredited investor that we have now relates to the wealth of the investor or their income, which may have nothing to do with their sophistication and knowledge. And I look forward to working with others on this committee to have a definition of accredited that discards the idea of wealth and looks instead at knowledge, but also specifies that if you're going to participate in that kind of private placement, you don't put more than 5 or 10% of your assets in any one basket. The definition of an accredited investor we have now is based on wealth levels set in the 1980s, which means they're completely out of date and probably shouldn't be used at all. Mr. Chairman, you said to the Banking Committee back a couple years ago, to the extent there are securities on these trading platforms, under our laws, they have to register with the Commission. So assuming that a particular crypto token is a security, if that's true, is an exchange where that security is traded a securities exchange?
Under the laws, if you meet the definition of an exchange and you have securities on that exchange, yes, you have to come in and comply and register and protect the investing public.
Well, I heard you earlier say that no field in finance is so rampant with non-compliance. If there are those who are not complying with our securities laws, please shut them down as quickly as you possibly can. And I point out that the most famous crypto exchange was FTX. It is now, of course, the most infamous exchange. Congress expanded from 500 all the way up to 2,000 the number of entities that can be beneficial owners and still have the company thought of as a private company. I mean, that's a lot, 2,000 owners. But we've got a huge loophole here where you could have dozens or hundreds of beneficial ownership entities counted as only one if they list the stock in street name. Do you have the authority, and will you move toward a definition of 2,000 that reflects 2,000?
I think you raise a good point, and I've asked staff for recommendations for the Commission's consideration, really to ensure that Congress's will about these numbers, the 2,000 number you reference in the Jobs Act, it really means 2,000, and how to look at, as you say, street name ownership that a broker might hold for hundreds of thousands. I think
you'll find companies calling themselves private that have many, many thousands of beneficial owners, and that's not what the securities law calls for. Companies, when they file their 10Ks every year, they list their risk factors. One risk factor that's increasingly important is the risk of a disruption in the U.S.-China relationship or economic relationship. If investors got explicit information about that, that would protect investors. If companies had to fight for capital by demonstrating their resiliency, their ability to withstand such a breakdown, then our entire country would be more resilient and Taiwan would be more secure. Can you move forward to be more explicit and clear with companies that they need to disclose the risks to the company and hopefully what they're doing to ameliorate that risk of a possible breakdown in the U.S.-China relationship?
Under current rules, companies need to disclose material risk, and if they have operations and there's material risk related to any geopolitical area, not just the one you mentioned, they're obliged to disclose that.
So a lot of those questions seems like he fed them right into Gary Gensler. I wouldn't be surprised if these were all pre-planned questions. What's crazier about all of this is that like it was just a whole bunch of him sucking up to Gary Gensler and praising the SEC because this is a banker. This is a guy who loves the banks. And look at this, going all the way back to 2021. Chair Gary Gensler, public calendar. Look at this, Brad Sherman. Meeting with Brad Sherman. And it's all about the banking committee. It's everything about the banking system. How can we protect the banks? How can we make sure that the banks are still in charge? How can we make sure that the banks are the ones still in power? Like here you have Goldman Sachs, meeting with Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, the big banks, JP Morgan and Chase. Like this is the biggest problem around regulations is that it's not fair regulations. It's whatever can benefit the banks and the big bankers. This is a big problem, and I want everyone to understand it. And also, by the way, I just want to give you guys a little bit of an insight that, you know, these people like Gary Gensler and Brad Sherman, they're getting paid off by the big banks to go after crypto because they know, these big banks know that crypto poses a serious threat to their overall business model. This, I'm telling you guys, This pisses me off. It should frustrate you. It should make you angry because we know what's happening. Crypto is being targeted. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys have more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. So it's up to you all. Have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are on this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.